Buongiorno! Buongiorno Milano! ¿Cómo está? Bien? Bien. Grazie. Miei amici. Mi grande famiglia. I will apologize now because my Italian is very small. Next time I come back, my promise is that I will know more. So, good morning. I'd like to thank all of the people that have made today possible. This has been a program 3 years in the making to get here today. It feels very good to be here today. So I'd like to thank Ilkore, Silvano, Gwen, Maria Rosa, all of the people in the organization. I'd like to thank Marco Edzioni, my publisher. And I'd like to thank all of you for making this day possible. I do not know everyone in this audience. There are approximately 1,000 people in this room. If you're in this room today, I don't know you personally, but I know this about you. And I can say this with absolute certainty. If you're in this room, you are the person in your family, in your workplace, in your circle of friends. You are the person that other people have always thought is a little bit different. Is that true?
Yeah.
Not bad. Just different. Because you look at things differently. You have a different way of seeing the world. And we laugh at that sometimes. On the one hand. But I also know this. I know that when your family and the people in your workplace and your circle of friends, when their lives fall apart, when their marriage, their perfect marriage ends in a day, and when their career falls apart, and when their health fails, that you're the one that they come to. They come to you and they say, "What happened? What happened to my life?" Because you have the courage to see the world in a different way. You have the strength to live your life in a different way. And this is very, very important, and this is why we're here today. We're here today to do something very powerful, very important. Let me ask a question. How many people in this room believe that you have a power within your body that is not fully used? How many believe that? Okay, how many believe that the power is there first? Do you believe the power is there? Okay, my question, why don't you use it? Why aren't we using that power? There's a reason why. And that reason is what we're here to do today. In the Western world, in the modern world, we base our understanding of our lives and the universe upon science. And I was trained as a scientist. And science is good. And sometimes science is wrong. There are two places where science has made false assumptions about you, about me, about our universe, about this world. Two places. And we're going to identify what those places are, and we're going to explore them today. Because it changes everything. It changes everything when we understand the truth where science made the mistake. First of all, science tells us that the space in the emptiness of the universe is truly empty. And we know that that is not true. That the space between you and me, and the space between the stars, they say is empty. But that's not true. Nothing could be further from the truth. Because there's something in that space. And that something is what gives us the power to heal our bodies and to bring peace to our world and to change this world if we understand the language to speak to that stuff that is in the emptiness. But science tells us there's nothing there, number one. Number two, science tells us that the inner experience in your heart, in my heart, that our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, our prayers, our beliefs in our bodies have no effect on the world beyond our bodies. Do you believe that? I'm going to tell you, there is a language. There is a language that lives in every human that walks this earth. It's a language of no words. It's the language of human emotion. It's a language that was lost to Western traditions 1,700 years ago. But it's a language that has been remembered in ancient and indigenous traditions. So if you're like me, you'd like to know what this day is all about. Do you know what today is all about? Do you even know what we're going to do? Would you like to know? Okay, so this is what we're going to do. The bottom line, these are false assumptions. There is something in the emptiness. There is no empty space. It is alive. It is pulsing. It is living. It is intelligent. There is a field of energy that holds everything together, and you and I are part of that field. What we're going to do today, the bottom line, we're going to share the science that tells us, number one, that the field is there. Number two, we're going to discover that our bodies and our world are the materialization of that field. From the unreal to the real, from the invisible to the visible, from the probability of quantum possibilities to the reality of our physical world. And number three, we'll find that the language of human emotion, it's a language you already know. Everyone knows this language. We're going to learn how to use this language to speak to this field, the divine matrix, in a way that is meaningful and useful in our lives. How many feel now that something really big is happening in our world today? You think something really big? Does the world feel different to you? Does it feel different? It's bigger than Iraq, bigger than George Bush, bigger than who knows. Do you feel that? It is. In 2003, scientists published a report telling us that this is a time unlike any other time in the history of the earth or the history of humankind. What they say is this. They said there are 5 scenarios that are unfolding. 5 scenarios that are happening right now. And any one of those scenarios, if it goes to completion, could end our civilization, could end our world as we know it. If any one goes to completion, all 5 of them are happening right now. This is a time unlike any time in recorded human history. But the mystery is that no one knows how this time will end, because you and I are choosing that outcome right now. And we're doing it in ways that we're only beginning to understand through the new science that tells us that we are not victims of this world. You are not a victim of your world. You don't have to suffer and live in disease and grow old the way that we've believed that science tells us. We don't have to use war to solve our problems. And we're living a time when all of those things come together right now. And what gives you and me the power to participate is the fact, and it is a fact, that this field of energy exists and that every one of you is speaking to this field every day. The question is, do you know what you're saying to the field? Do you know what you're saying? How many in here are fans of the Sufi poet Rumi? Any Rumi fans? Rumi?
Wow.
Okay, Rumi. Rumi says, what strange beings we are. He says that sitting in hell, at the bottom of the dark, we are afraid of our own immortality. I think there's probably a lot of truth to what Rumi says, and it may go even deeper. It may go even deeper. What if we're not so afraid of our immortality? What if we are afraid of our power to heal the hell that we create in this world? What if we're afraid of the power within us to heal the suffering? If we had that kind of power, does it truly frighten us? Maybe on a subconscious level. Maybe that's what's happening. I'm going to share a story with you. It's a true story. It's a story of the birth of two baby girls, twins, and they were born prematurely, 7 weeks premature. And in the United States, there's a protocol, there's a practice. Practice is good? Okay. There is a practice. I want to thank our translators in this room right here for helping us. Thank you so much. They're working very hard today, I can tell. There is a practice in the United States when babies are born prematurely. The first thing they do is separate the babies. Now, can you imagine living in the womb of your mother for 6 or 7 or 8 months and living close to another being, your twin brother or your twin sister, and hearing the heartbeat of your mother every day and the heartbeat of your twin every day, and suddenly you're taken from that environment. And the first thing that happens is you're separated, and they put one twin, one premature baby in one incubator, and the second baby in a second incubator under the hot lights of the intensive care unit in the hospital. They put them in separate rooms, lying on their stomachs, face down. That's what they do with the new babies, the premature babies. So these two baby girls came into the world. And this is what happened. They were separated, taken to different rooms, and immediately one of the little girls began to fail. Her vital signs began to drop. She was dying. There was a nurse who was working at the time. And the nurse said, I must do something or this baby will die. She said, I'm going to break the rules. I'm going to break the protocol. And she reached in, picked up the young baby that was dying. She took her into the intensive care unit with her sister, and you know where the story's going. You know what happened. She put the weaker girl in the incubator with the stronger girl. But this is where the story gets really interesting. And this is what tells me what I'm about to share with you is something that we are born with. It's not something that we learn. Because here is what happened. They put the weaker baby girl in with the stronger one. And immediately the stronger one reached out with her arm and placed her arm around the shoulders of her baby sister. And the minute she did that, the instant she did that, her sister's vital signs stabilized. And she got stronger and stronger and stronger, and they both lived. Okay, can you feel that feeling? Can you feel that? See, I can see you're holding your heart. Some of you have tears in your eyes. Why? That feeling That feeling is a language. That feeling is a power that lives inside of your body. If I had walked onto this stage and said, now, have that feeling, it may have been hard to do. But you saw an image that gave you a reason for that feeling. You're still crying. It's a powerful story. It's a powerful image. It's true. And the two girls lived, and they're doing very well today. That feeling is something that does not happen in your mind. It happens in your heart. The image and the story went directly to your heart. It bypassed your mind. It bypassed the filters. It bypassed the logic, the questions, the conditioning, the judgment. It was just a feeling. Today, modern science is beginning to understand that that feeling that happens inside of our bodies has a direct effect on the stuff our world is made of, on the atoms and the molecules of our physical world. How many in this room like science? Do you like science? How many do not like science? Well, this is fun science. Because what I'd like to do today, the first part of this day, I'm going to share with you the science that is so new. It is not yet in the textbooks, on the one hand. It's not in the textbooks yet. On the other hand, it is the science that you and I and our children will use to solve the problems that we're leaving in the world today. It's a very different way of thinking about things. So, for the next few moments, I would like to share with you the science. And I think you'll enjoy the science very much, because it gives us a way to understand what we will see next. After we understand the science, I'd like to invite you into the monasteries of Tibet, into the monasteries of Egypt and Peru, because it's in those places that the wisdom is kept of the language of our hearts, the wisdom in their cultures that was lost in our cultures. So as we go through the day, I'm sharing the science, and then we will go into the ancient wisdom that describes the science in another language. And then we will see miraculous video in here of that science applied to create healing inside the body of a living human. We will see a woman that has been diagnosed with cancer, and we can see inside of her body through ultrasound, through a sonogram. And we can watch this practice of human emotion, focused human emotion, heal that cancer in less than 3 minutes for one person. And then we'll see the same principle applied for peace in the Middle East during the Israeli-Lebanese war in the early 1980s, because it's the same principle. And then we'll have the opportunity in this room to learn the language that creates those miracles. Is that okay? Are you okay if we do that today? So, okay, good. Thank you. So the question, how much power do we really have to change our world, to change our lives, to change our bodies? How much power do you believe that we really have? The question that we're really asking is, who are we? Who are we? And this is the great mystery and the controversy in the language of science. Are we simply observers, passive observers in this universe, watching the world go by, or are we powerful creators? As our most cherished religious and spiritual traditions have always said, Are we actually powerful creators that have forgotten how to use our power? Well, this is the great question that has been asked by scientists for 400 years. When I was in school in the 1970s, 1960s, I was taught that the universe began a long time ago and that we have come along relatively recently and that we are essentially powerless specks of dust in the universe. And after we are gone, the universe will never know that we were here. That's what I was taught when I was in school. Does that sound familiar to you? That's one way of thinking. There is another way of thinking that says something very different. It says the universe began a long time ago. We have come along relatively recently. However, we are powerful creators that are changing our world and changing the universe as we live our lives. And this is the controversy of the scientists. Albert Einstein believed the first idea. Albert Einstein said we live in a world which exists independently of us humans, which stands before us like a great eternal riddle, at least partially accessible to our inspection and thinking. It's very complex. What he's saying is, Albert Einstein believes that we will be lucky if we understand even a little bit of how the universe works, and that we are very insignificant. Okay. A colleague of Albert Einstein was alive during his time and is still alive today. His name is Professor John Wheeler, Princeton University physicist. He's still with us today. John Wheeler says completely the opposite. They studied in the same time, they had the same information, the same books, the same data, and they had very different opinions. Look at what John Wheeler says. John Wheeler says we could not even imagine a universe that did not contain us, because he says it is the act of us observing the universe that makes the universe as it is. He said it is the act of us observing the world around us. He said that we're part of a universe that is not finished yet. John Wheeler says the universe is incomplete. He says that we are tiny specks, tiny patches of the universe looking at itself and building itself in what he calls a participatory universe. Participatory. I like that word. It means that we are not controlling the universe. We are not imposing our will upon the universe. We are participating, co-creating. Does that mean anything to you when you see this? Let me ask you a question. Let's explore this idea just a little bit. I know that you all lie awake in bed at night, sleepless, because you're wondering why we have never found the smallest particle of matter, right? Or you lie awake in bed at night, sleepless, because you wonder why we've never found the edge of the universe, right? No, I do. The truth is that we may never find the smallest particle of matter. And we may never find the edge of the universe. Scientists build huge machines, cyclotrons, particle accelerators. And they take a little particle of matter and they accelerate it to the speed of light, almost. And they smash it into another particle so they can break it into many pieces, thinking that somewhere in there they will find the ultimate, smallest particle of matter. And they never find it. Do you know why? Because here's what happens. Every time they think they find the smallest particle, they look and there's something else there. Something else is there. The reason that we will probably never find the smallest particle. And the reason that we will probably never find the edge of the universe is because of what John Wheeler says. He says the act of us searching, the act of the human heart and the human mind looking at the universe, expecting to see something, will always create something for us to see. The act of us looking with the expectation that something is there is an act of creation unto itself. Does that make sense to you? This is important. This is important to you. Think about this. I invite you to think about this. If looking with the expectation that something exists is what creates that something, then what does it mean when you are conditioned to look at your body, to search your body every day or every week, looking for something to be wrong, looking for an abnormality, looking for a lump, looking for a discoloration? You know what I'm talking about, right? I'm not saying don't look. What I'm suggesting is it's your consciousness while you are looking that is important. What happens if you look at your body in the mirror every day and you say, "Ah, beautiful body"? And that is an act of creation. Can you see how that is different than if you look in your body for a lump or something that should not be there? Does that make sense? Very, very powerful, what John Wheeler is saying. This is a scientist saying that consciousness is creating our physical universe. The question is, if feeling and consciousness is creating, what is it that we feel? What do we believe about our world? The new discoveries suggest that the power to change our bodies and to change our world is based in what we call belief. Belief. Our belief of what is real. We live our lives based in what we believe about our world. Would you agree with that? We live our lives based on what we believe about, sure, about ourselves, our world, one another, our limitations, our capabilities. I was trained as a scientist. When I began to understand that we live our lives based upon our beliefs, my question is, where do those beliefs come from? And what I found is that those beliefs come from what other people tell us. The beliefs come from what history tells us, what science tells us, what religion tells us, what our culture, what our family, our friends tell us. That's where our beliefs come from. Would you agree with that? So let me ask a question. What if they're wrong? What if they're wrong? What if you and I are living our lives in the beliefs of other people who are incorrect? What does that mean for us? How powerful do you think a belief really is? How powerful, truly? There's an author. His name was Neville. In the early 20th century, he wrote a book called The Power of Awareness, a beautiful book. And what Neville said was this. He said that our power of belief is a power, an infinite power against which no earthly force is of the slightest significance. Our power of belief is an infinite power against which no earthly force is of the slightest significance. Do you believe that you have a power within you against which no earthly force is of the slightest significance? Is that possible? Do you believe that? Let me show you some examples. Let me share some examples of miracles. You've all heard these stories before. You've heard stories of miracles. This is a story of a woman who lifted a car 20 times her body weight to free a person who was trapped underneath the car in an accident. You've heard stories like this. She freed this person. She went to the hospital with this person. She waited in the waiting room. The doctor came out and said, "This man will live because you lifted the car and saved his life." And when she heard the words that described what she did, she passed out. Unconscious. Because she had done something that even she couldn't believe. She wasn't thinking about it. All she said, "I just knew I had to get him free, and there was no one else around at the time." How many in this room are fire walkers? Fire walkers. Do you walk the fire pit? Okay, a few. On June 15th, 2005, Amanda Dennison, Alberta, Canada, entered the book of world records for the longest fire walk. Look at this walk. She crossed this pit, 220 feet long. I don't know how many meters that is. Approximately? Okay, it's a big fire pit. Big pit. Averaging 1,700 degrees Fahrenheit. She crossed this uninjured. This is a picture of Amanda walking through the coals. This is a picture of Amanda after the walk. And the question, she has no injuries. The question is why? Why no injuries? It's because of her beliefs. The woman lifted the car 20 times her body weight because of her beliefs. Amanda walked through the fire because of her beliefs. These are examples we see every day of a power within us. But they're rare examples. What if they become everyday examples? Miracles of belief. We ask the question, who are we? What we know is that we're made of quantum energy. You all have heard that we are quantum energy, yes? Yes? Okay. For 70 years, scientists have been telling us that we are little particles of quantum energy. And now we believe them. But now scientists say those little quantum particles can do miraculous things, amazing things. But the scientists say those miracles have nothing to do with your life. For example, quantum particles, we know, can exist as a physical particle, like this. It's a quantum particle. That particle can exist invisible. The particle is still there. It has just changed its form. Quantum particles can exist in one place in a moment in time. Quantum particles can exist in two places or many places at the same time, and they are always connected. They are always connected with one another. So the particles are always connected. Quantum particles can communicate with themselves in the past and in the future. This is very interesting. Scientists can take a quantum particle and they know everything there is to know about this particle. They know its rotation, its plus, its minus, its charge in the present, now. Okay? They can take it into the future, and now this is the past, this is the future. Okay? You okay so far? All right, now they can change the particle now, and it changes what it had to be in the past to get to now. They can change the particle in the present, and it changes the particle in the past even though the past already happened. Very interesting. So the question is, we're made of those particles. So can we do what these particles can do? We're made of quantum particles. Are they showing us our limits, or are they showing us our possibility, our potential? What do you think? Are those quantum particles that we're made of showing us limitations or possibilities? I think so. I think so. And I think you'll see why in just a moment. Can we do everything that those particles can do? The answer is yes. But it's based on what we believe to be true. Not what we think in our minds. What we believe in our hearts. And that is a very subtle, very powerful difference. Not the mind, the heart. We're made of those particles. We are held together through a focus, a force. This is a clue. What is the force that holds our quantum particles together as our bodies? What is the force that begins with the letter C that holds all of the particles of your body together? What is that force called? Anyone? No, it starts with a C. Okay, there it is. Consciousness. Consciousness. Very good. Some yes, some not so good. Consciousness is what holds these particles together. Consciousness organizes the particles into your body and into this world. 1944, the father of quantum theory, his name was Max Planck. Max Planck made this statement. He said, the stuff of our world does not exist the way we think it exists. Max Planck said, as a man who has devoted his whole life to the most clear-headed science, to the study of matter, I can tell you as a result of my research about the atoms this much. Okay? There is no matter as such. What he's saying is the stuff that we're made of does not exist the way we believe it exists. He goes on to say that what we think is matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force. He said there's a force out there that holds everything together in our bodies and in our world. He said we must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious mind, an intelligent mind. He said this mind is the matrix of all matter. This mind is the matrix of all matter. If you saw the movie The Matrix, this is where the movie was based from. This information. The father of quantum theory, Max Planck, said that there is an energy, a field of energy that holds everything together, that this is not solid and we are not solid. Belief is the code that takes that field of energy, possibilities, and translates that field into the reality of this world. Belief is the code that translates possibilities into the reality of this world. Here's what scientists say to us about the way this world works. Scientists are telling us now that in this field, all possibilities already exist in the quantum energy, in the soup of quantum possibility. All possibilities already exist. In the quantum possibilities, you are already healed. Peace has already happened. Joy is already everywhere. All of the greatest suffering, all of the greatest peace already exists in the quantum possibilities. And here's what they say happens with you and me. That with our mind, we reach in to those possibilities. We imagine our healing. We imagine the peace. We imagine our perfect relationship. We imagine the abundance in our lives with our mind. And that's how we lock that possibility into place. And with our heart, we give that possibility life. We breathe life into the image of our mind through the feeling in our heart and make it real in our world. Now, I'm going to share with you the science of how this happens. We have to understand what a belief is. We talk about belief. What is a belief? Belief is the marriage. It is a union of thought and emotion. Thought and emotion. And now we have to define thought and emotion. This is an image from an ancient Sanskrit text. It shows the energy centers of the body, the chakras. I know you all are familiar with chakras. They say that thought happens in the upper chakras, right here. This is thought. This is where we imagine the quantum possibility. The emotion happens in the creative center, in the lower chakras. This is emotion. And they say our emotions are only two: love and fear. Love and the opposite of love. So when we think a thought in our mind, we fuel that thought. We give our thought life through the love or the fear that we place into the thought. And when we do that, we create a feeling. And now we have a definition for feeling. Feeling is the union, the marriage of emotion and thought. What we think of a possibility and our love or our fear of that thought. Does that make sense? Is that good? This is important because we're going to use this. Does this make sense? Okay? What is the one energy center in the body that does not have the circle? What is the one center that we have not talked about here? Precisely, the heart. Feeling happens in our heart. Feeling doesn't happen in the mind. Feeling doesn't happen in the lower, well, a little bit, but not much in the lower centers. Feeling happens in our heart. Feeling and belief are connected. Feeling and belief. So in our hearts, we have hate, sadness, joy, compassion. These are feelings. These are not emotions. To have hate, sadness, joy, compassion, we must have a thought, and then the love or the fear for that thought that creates these feelings. So now we have a definition of feeling. Feeling is the union of thought and emotion. You're going to see this in a 2,000-year-old text this afternoon. Exactly the same thing. So our belief translates the quantum possibilities that we imagine into the physical reality of our world. And I want to show you how. I want to show you how that happens. I don't want you just to believe me, to take my word. I want to show you the proof so your mind can see the proof. Belief is what translates those possibilities into the atoms of our world. The quantum possibility exists as waves only. But this world is made of atoms. So I think you're going to like what you're going to see. Do you remember a long time ago, when I was in school, and maybe when you were in school, we were told that the atom looks like this. Looks like a little solar system. Long time ago, remember? And we were taught that the atom is made of things. A thing in the center and things that orbit, things that circulate. Okay? That's not what scientists believe today. Now the atom, they believe, looks like this. It looks like energy. The atom no longer looks like things, it looks like waves of energy rather than particles of things. Now this is very important. You're going to see why. I think you will like what you're going to see in just a moment. So just work with me. So the quantum atom is made of waves of energy rather than particles of things. And this is very important. This is very important. If you want to change an atom, you have to change the energy that the atom lives in. If you want to change the stuff, the physical stuff of our world, you must change the energy that that stuff exists within. Is that okay? Is that good? Does that make sense to you? You okay with that? Okay. We're going slowly because something big is about to happen here. Einstein said this very well. Einstein actually said the field that connects everything together is what he called the governing agency of the particle. Einstein said the field is what determines how the atom behaves. It's in the field. The sole governing agency is what Albert Einstein said. So the field that we're talking about, the field is made of electrical energy, it's made of magnetic energy, two energies. The field that holds everything together. This is out of a traditional text, a traditional physics text. Look at what this says. This says if you change the electric field, that you will change the way the atom behaves, and there's actually a name for this. It is called the Stark effect. So if you change the electrical field, the Stark effect, you change the atom, or if you change the magnetic field, it's called the Zeeman effect, you change the atom. So all this is saying is that science knows today, if you change the electrical field or you change the magnetic field, you change the atom. Okay, that's good? Okay, watch what happens. What organ in your body produces the strongest electrical field in your body? Guess.
The brain.
Okay? See, I told you would like this. Okay, our world is made of electrical and magnetic energy. The atom. And the science says if you change the electrical field or you change the magnetic field, you change that atom. Okay, there is one organ in your body that produces the strongest electrical field and the strongest magnetic field in your body. Here's a clue. I'll give you a clue. Right there. Your heart. And it's where you have the feeling. The feeling that you had when you saw the baby girls. That feeling that we call a feeling is actually creating waves of electrical and magnetic energy in your heart that changes your body and changes your world. But you don't have to know that because you simply had a feeling. And this is what the ancient understood and what they left in their temples and their texts, in the monasteries, in the language of their time. They understood this. Our heart, look at this. The human heart produces the strongest electrical and magnetic fields in the body. Some people said the brain. The brain does produce these fields, but look, the heart's electrical field is 100 times stronger than the brain. 100 times stronger than the brain. The heart's magnetic field is up to 5,000 times stronger than the brain's magnetic field. And the references, the technical references, I won't read them here. They're on the website, my website, if you would like the technical references. But you see what's happening here. Our heart produces the fields that change our world and change our body. Can you see that so far? Beliefs create the electrical waves. Beliefs change those magnetic waves. What you believe about yourself, what you believe about me, what you believe about your world, about your relationship to God, about peace on this earth is creating what is happening on this earth right now. Beliefs change our physical world. Beliefs change matter. Now I have to stop and ask the question, does this make sense so far? Does it make sense in the back of the room? It's good? Okay. I'm going to come visit you later this afternoon. Good. It's good. Okay, if this makes sense, now we can move on. 1968, Jerry Garcia concert. Don't look too long. These are waves of energy. Quantum possibilities, scientists tell us, exist as waves of energy. The waves are contracting and expanding. They're coming and they're going. These are the possibilities of your life. Your perfect relationship is coming and it's going. Your abundance, your perfect job, it's coming and it's going. Because the waves are always in motion. Okay, let me ask you a question. What would happen if the wave was not coming and was not going? If it was in one place, what would we call that wave? If it's not coming and it's not going? Let's see what this would look like. Okay. Can you see this wave? It is pulsing, but it's not coming and it's not going. Can you see that? This is called a standing wave. A standing wave. It's not coming and it's not going. The possibilities, the quantum possibilities of your life are these waves that are coming and going. The standing wave is the reality. Okay? The quantum possibilities, the soup of all possibilities, are coming and going. But the reality of this world is a wave that is standing wave. It is not coming and it's not going. This is what atoms look like. Atoms are the waves that are stationary. Quantum possibilities are the waves that are coming and going. Okay, does that make sense so far? Okay, because if it does, you're going to like what happens next. And then it won't be so technical. Okay, this makes sense. Let me ask, our beliefs in our heart produce the standing wave. Your heart produces the wave that locks the possibilities into place. Your heart is what produces the waves that make atoms. It's what you believe in your heart is what locks the quantum possibility into the reality of this moment. Heart waves are standing waves. Now, this is important. We're going to work with our hearts this afternoon. I'm going to share with you an experiment. How many have heard of the very famous double slit experiment performed in 1909? 1909. A couple. This is the experiment that began the ideas of quantum physics. It's a very important experiment. Look at what happened. Scientists in 1909 took a particle of matter called a photon. It's P-H-O-T-O-N. They have this photon right here. And they take this photon and they wanted to shoot the photon at this target. Before it could reach this target, it passes through one opening, through this barrier. Okay? So easy experiment. They take the particle, passes through the barrier, goes to the target. The particle acts like a particle. Everyone is happy. It's a good experiment. This is good. Okay? Then they tried the experiment again and changed one thing. They're using the same kind of particle, the same target. This time, the barrier has two openings. Now, they believe that the particle can only be in one place at one time, and they were not prepared for what happens in this experiment. Should we do this experiment? Do you want to see? Okay, watch what happens. This is a photon, a particle of light. It's the stuff our world and our bodies are made of. So they are experimenting with the stuff of reality is what they're doing. They take this particle and they fire it and it disappeared. And they said, what happened? The next time they saw the particle was at this target, but it's not a particle. It's a wave, meaning that it passed through both openings at the same time. The particle changed itself to accommodate the conditions. And this is actually a drawing. This is from the actual science notebook of 1909 showing what these waves look like. This is a mystery. So the scientists are asking the question, why did this happen? They're saying the particle began as a particle. It began as matter. But look at this. It behaves like a wave. It behaves like energy. And they're asking why. Why does the particle change? They asked this question. They said, who knows that there are two openings possible for that particle? The scientists in the room know, the particle knows, but the particle can't know anything. And the scientists, they say, well, we know, but that cannot possibly have an effect on reality, can it? So here's the question. Who knows that there are two openings available? The scientist and the particles. And this is the answer to our question here. Because what the scientists discovered is that their knowledge, the scientist's consciousness, was affecting the particle in the experiment. The fact that the scientists knew that there were different openings affected the way the particle works. Does that make sense? Are you okay with that? Here's why that's important. It's because they are showing that their consciousness is affecting our physical world, and they were showing it in 1909. The observer changed the particles of our world. The observer changed the particles. John Wheeler, Princeton University, made this statement. He said, we had this old idea that there is a universe out there, And that here is man, the observer, safely protected from the universe by a 6-inch slab of plate glass, as he calls it. This is John Wheeler saying this. He says,